going to spend 100 days with realistic mods in GTA 5.
Hey, what's up with you?
From getting a job cleaning floors, delivering newspapers, and selling burgers, to studying for a driving license, and even getting pulled over for using the phone. I'll have 100 days to get $1 million, and use it to buy a car and a home. The catch is, I started with absolutely nothing. I had to find food, a place to sleep, clothes, get a job, and go from a nobody to the most successful businessman in the city. This is me, naked, with no cash and no items. If I didn't have something to eat soon, I would die. To get started, I walked around the street looking for a market.
Julio, my man.
Thankfully, there was one right around the corner.
Hello.
It had a lot of stuff on sale. The thing is, I couldn't even afford even the cheapest item. I needed money. Normally, I could just rob the place, but we're not gonna do that. I was just a normal person trying to survive. So, I went to a stoplight and I started asking for money. After an entire day of begging and cleaning cars, I had a grand total of $11. Not much, but it was just enough to go back to the market and finally buy something. And I was back to zero again. Although, when I went outside, I felt victorious.
That was kinda good.
This was my reward. I was still broke though, and exhausted, and as if things weren't bad enough, I was completely soaked. I started running, looking for somewhere to rest. Eventually, I found a group of homeless people under the highway. There was a campfire which I used to stay warm. I had no other choice but to sleep on the ground. The next morning wasn't much better.
I'm gonna rip off both your nipples.
I didn't know what to do, so sleeping on the streets was too dangerous. I needed a proper place to rest. I checked the prices at nearby motels. One charged $168, the other over $200. I needed at least over $150 just to afford a single night indoors. So I went back to holding my sign at the stoplight. The problem was that I wasn't earning much. I needed something better. That's when I realized I was near the Weasel News building. This could be my opportunity. Here, I could work as a newspaper delivery worker. They even gave me a bicycle. I rode through the city towards the neighborhood. I had to actually aim the newspaper specifically at each front door. It was pretty fun. The job was harder than it looked. Driving and timing the throw was not easy. Then, at one of the houses, things escalated. The people started shooting me. Why? But that wasn't all. They got into a car and started chasing me while firing shots at me. After hiding for a while, I managed to lose them. My first job was finally completed. I earned $140 for the full day. It ain't much, but it's honest work. I walked to a nearby gas station to buy something to eat and drink.
Ooh, delicious.
But most importantly, this time I was able to pay for a room at the Pink Cage Motel. The place wasn't great. The bed sheets were messy, the television was not working, the bathroom was even worse, the toilet was awful. It wasn't comfortable, but for the first time I had a roof over my head. The neighborhood was quite sketchy though. I still couldn't afford the safe area. We will get there, step by step. On day 3, things got heated. I came out of the hospital the following day, alive. I was in debt now. I needed more money than ever. That meant getting a better paying job, but for that, I needed clothes. No one was going to take me seriously looking like this. So, I did another round of delivering newspapers to gather some cash. With that done, I finally bought an outfit for myself. it was time to get my second job. I crossed the street towards a place called Glass Heroes Auto Repairs. I had to clean windows by hand, like literally moving the mouse to wipe the screen. It was actually pretty fun. I was sent to different locations around the city, cleaning one place after the other. Once I finished all the assignments, I went back to collect my payment. If I was gonna work multiple jobs, that involved a lot of walking. So I went to check out how much a car actually cost. I went to a dealership and browsed the options. Even the cheapest vehicle was far too expensive. Motorcycles were even more pricey for some reason, but that wasn't even the biggest problem. Before doing anything, I needed to get a driver's license in an actual government building. There, I found a menu for driving theory and practical tests. I could choose between Class C, Class M1, or Class A. The written test was actually an exam I had to take, with multiple choice questions. I tried completing it on the first try, but failed. So now, I couldn't afford the car, and I wasn't even licensed to drive one. Walking everywhere was really slow, so that left me with one option: public transport. I hopped into a bus. Once inside, I could see the next stop displayed on the screen. I loved being able to go into first person and look behind me, watching other passengers just going on with their lives. There's something special about doing day-to-day activities like this, just looking through the window, contemplating the living city. This became my routine. After a week of working 2 jobs every single day, I managed to make my first $1,000. Although it wasn't enough to pay my debt, let alone a house or a car. It was time to kick things up. That's when I walked into Burgershot. To my surprise, it was really easy to get a job here. I began working on the spot. My first task was simple: clean one of the tables. After wiping it down, I was told to take out the garbage. I walked through the back hallway, picked up the bag, which looked kind of funny, and carried it outside the dumpster. Then it was time to take an actual order. A customer asked for a money shot meal. To assemble it, I cooked the patty, prepared some fries, and filled the cup with soda. Once everything was ready, I placed it on a tray and delivered it to her. I loved how specific the process was. She rated me 3 stars. Why? I did nothing wrong. Another customer complained about their fries and soda, so I remade them. This time, 4 stars, getting better. I continued cleaning tables.
Hey, what's up with you?
Hi.
And preparing meals. At one point, I had to retrieve ingredients from a delivery truck outside. I carried the box all the way back to the storeroom. By the end of the shift, I didn't stop. I continued juggling my other jobs. Cleaning windows around the city, taking the bus, then returning to the motel at night to sleep. Rinse and repeat. Delivering the newspapers was still my favorite activity. Although, during one of the routes, someone started shooting at me again. I pedaled away as fast as possible. Things like this were everywhere in the city. For example, while doing one of my shifts at Burgershot, there was a shootout right outside the restaurant. Finally, after weeks of work, I did it. I managed to reach $5,000. With that, I headed straight to the hospital to pay off my debt. I was free after everything I went through. This was a turning point. I wanted to do something of my own now. I was done working for others. Cleaning tables, dealing with this. No, it was time. I quit. I made a decision. It was time to be my own boss. So I tried busking. There was even a small mini-game where I had to press enter at the correct time to keep going. People actually began approaching. Some even dropped money into the cup. This was working. Next, I switched to the guitar. This one seemed to work much better. And there was this guy wearing sunglasses dancing like crazy. Others were clapping, even pulling out phones and filming. It was great. The next morning, I looked for a better location. Not every area had good traffic. I tried playing near a medical center and it wasn't profitable at all. I moved to another part of town, playing the bongos, but then
I kill you.
I woke up later in the hospital with some bruises. No death this time, but all my money was gone. I was mugged back to zero again. I decided to try something else. I went to the beach and started pretending to be a yoga instructor. I was doing all kinds of movements, even though I had no idea what I was doing. At first, no one paid attention. Then, people gathered around. Soon, there was a small crowd following along. This was working. By this point, I had around $1,500. Not bad. Still, not enough. I needed to step things up. I sat down on a bench and started thinking about what I could do next. Then it clicked.
Damn, that was good.
What if I put my own hot dog stand? That's exactly what I did. From time to time, I ran out of ingredients and I had to go and restock properly. Going to the market and buying sausage packs, buns, all kinds of stuff. It felt pretty immersive, buying supplies, cooking and selling them. The location mattered too. Some spot had heavy traffic and steady customers. Others were empty. By now, I had over $5,000. The hot dog business was great, but I wanted to push things further. I grabbed my phone, went to the browser, and navigated to the Money and Services tab. There, I was able to go to the Liberty City Exchange Index. Here, I could invest in stocks. You could see the different companies, their prices, and their average changes. I had no knowledge at all about the market, and I do not recommend investing without understanding what you're doing. For the sake of the challenge, I decided to give it a try, spreading my money across a few options, trying to diversify. One of the ways I tried making even more money on the side was fishing while not selling hot dogs. I went to a convenience store and bought a rod, then started casting from the pier. I pulled all kinds of strange things out of the water. Eventually, I sold my catch to a nearby restaurant. That day, I earned over $1,000 from fishing alone. It was insane. By day 50, I had over $10,000. As I walked down the street, I noticed some people exercising. That got me thinking. I was focusing only on money. But that wasn't everything. I had been stabbed, I had been chased, beaten. If I wanted to survive long term, I needed to work on my body and my mind. So I started training. It was time to take another try in getting that driver's license. After all, selling hot dogs and fish had its limits. First, the theory exam. I needed to complete the following sentence. Pedestrians using guide dogs or carrying white canes must be A. Giving the right of way at all times, or D. Drove into for bonus points. Yeah, there was a lot of weird stuff in the test. For example, number 6, who is responsible for knowing how your medications affect your driving? A, you, or B, your mom, or this one, number 14. When you drive through an area where children are playing, you should expect them A, to know when it is safe to cross, or C. I won't go through every single question. In the end, I passed. Now it was time for the practical test. Except there wasn't one. I just realized this feature wasn't implemented yet. I decided to install another mod to add a proper driving test. So I headed to the driving school. There was a reception area where I could take an introductory session. It was like a cutscene showing me different locations and featuring information on the corner of the screen, like telling me the speed limit for residential areas or reducing speed at night ride in town areas, checking mirrors frequently, even a specific limit of alcohol level. After this, I headed to the classroom, where I took another theory test. This one was much longer than the last one. Once again, I passed. Now it was time. Finally, the practical test. Actually, the mod broke, didn't work. This is the reality of installing so many mods at once. In any case, we were now able to legally drive a vehicle. This opened up tons of new opportunities. The first place I went to was the Go Postal building. My job would be to deliver packages across the city. I got into the company van parked nearby. The first thing I did was to put on the seatbelt. If I didn't do this, I would get pulled over by the police. I also made sure to have the lights on, cause that's another reason you can get an actual ticket. Also, here you can see the controls of the car, where I'm able to use the blinkers alongside more stuff. It was so cool. Of course, I also had to respect the speed limit you see on screen. I drove as carefully as possible, stopping at red lights and waiting patiently. Doing this in GTA is always so strange but fun in a way. I also kept a safe distance from the cars in front of me. When I reached the first delivery point, I had to step out, go to the back of the van, pick up the package, and find out where the apartment was located. After going up some stairs, I was able to drop it off. There was something relaxing about doing jobs like this. Just driving carefully, following the rules, and delivering the boxes one by one. After finishing the final delivery, I returned the van and earned around $460. Not bad. The next day, I went to a recycling center. Here, I was able to work as a garbage truck driver. My co-workers stood on the back while I drove through the neighborhoods. At each stop, they jumped off, grabbed the trash bags, and ran back to the truck. Watching them sprint was hilarious. At one point, one of them even climbed the fence like crazy. I tried to follow traffic laws as carefully as possible, stopping at red lights, but at one moment, I intentionally broke the law to see what would happen. At one point, a police car saw us and signaled me to stop. I had to turn off the engine. There was even a dashcam view showing the officer approaching the truck and delivering the fine. Once all the routes were completed, I returned the truck and earned nearly $600. Combining all the different incomes was starting to pay off. Between shifts, I was still running my hot dog stand and fishing at night. For the following job, I went to Davies Mega Mall. My task was to pick up 3 employees from their homes and drive them to work. I headed to the company car, drove to each location, waited for them to get in, and drove safely to the mall. Simple stuff. Next, I worked at Go and Wash. Once I arrived at each location, I had to figure out how to reach the top of a billboard. That often meant climbing rooftops or finding ladders. The funny part was that there wasn't the proper cleaning animation, so it just looks like I'm standing there staring at the sign. At one point, I got caught speeding. Once again, I got pulled over. This time, I could actually see the ticket. I got a fine for speeding and not wearing my seatbelt for a total of $300. Despite the setback, I completed the billboard job and earned around $600. I was even promoted to level 3, which increased my salary by 20%. The following day, I tried the Banner Hotel and Spa. My task was to drive to the airport, get out of the car, and actually open the door for the guest. Then I had to provide a scenic route through Los Santos, showing off the city. I got a little too immersed in the scenery and ended up receiving another speeding ticket. Following the law in game wasn't as easy as it sounds. Eventually, we arrived at the hotel. The medical center was much more intense though. Here, I had to get in an emergency vehicle. I even had a partner with me. Our first call was a helicopter crash. I turned on the sirens and drove as quickly as possible. There wasn't a lot of time left. We arrived at the crash site and I ran to assess the victims. There was an animation I had to sit through, and then I was able to escort the victim to the ambulance. Rinse and repeat for the second patient. That wasn't all though. I now had to reach the hospital before time ran out, but things went very wrong. I tried doing my best, but there was nothing I could do anymore.
Oh, man.
It was a disaster. I clearly wasn't ready for this one. So I tried something more straightforward, delivering cargo for a place called Big Goods. I arrived at the first location and had to load some boxes into the van, literally one by one. Once I got to the destination, I had to unload them, once again, one by one. It was tiring, but it was honest work. The next job at SB Clean Company involved going to specific locations and cleaning the floor with the broom, one spot at a time. It actually featured an animation, which was oddly satisfying. One of the most unique jobs was at LS Customs. First, I had to go and meet the client. The sudden zoom in the NPC's face felt like I was playing Oblivion or something.
Your money or your life.
The client said his primo wanted to feel like the king of lowriders. He wanted to make it bounce and shine like no other. I don't know what that even means. His budget was $24,000. So I got into the client's car and drove it to the nearest tuning shop. After doing some upgrades and customization, I went back to the client. He wasn't fully satisfied.
Your money or your life.
It seemed I'd missed some of the requirements like the color and livery. In the end, I got around $700. Not bad, it was a fun mission. Next, I joined Portaline Auto Logistics as a professional car hauler. Here, I had to carefully attach the trailer to my truck. But that wasn't the hard part. I needed to load multiple vehicles onto the trailer, one by one, and it was much tighter than it looked. I struggled a bit with the alignment and scrubbed the paint more than once. These cars were meant for a dealership, by the way. I actually had to drive carefully once everything was loaded. The thing is, I didn't. Another day, another job. This time, it was Bulgeco Logistics. After driving the truck to the warehouse, I stepped out and got into a forklift. I had to approach each pallet carefully, lower the forks, lift the cargo, and transport it to the truck. It was pretty tricky. Doing everything in first person, though, was much more immersive. I loved it. Once everything was loaded, I returned the forklift, got back into the truck, and drove to the delivery location. When I arrived, I had to repeat the entire process in reverse. The next job was quite peculiar. The LSPD was hiring civilian contractors for convict transport. I couldn't believe I was driving a police vehicle. 2 officers placed a prisoner in the back, and it was my responsibility to transport him to the penitentiary. Thing is, halfway through the route, enemies began chasing me and shooting me. I wasn't prepared for that, and yeah, it didn't end well. After recovering in the hospital, I wanted something less lethal. That's when I got a job as a freight train operator. The thing was massive. The task was pretty straightforward. I just had to drive it. I loved taking a look inside the pilot cabin. I was able to control the top speed, as you can see on the right side of the screen, and I just had to be careful not to derail the whole thing. When the route was complete, I was promoted to level 4. Next, I worked with the park rangers. They needed help locating lost tourists in the wilderness. This one was sort of similar to the ambulance one I did before. I found a tourist lying on the road, then I made sure he was okay, and finally drove him to the nearest hospital. The doctors took care of the rest. At one point, I even became a taxi driver. Here you can see the taxi meter on screen. I picked up a client and was instructed to take him to the Maze Bank Arena. The interesting part was watching the fare increase in real time depending on the distance I drove. Technically, I could have taken the longest route possible, but I made a mistake. I pulled out my phone while driving, and there was a police car nearby. I was pulled over and got a ticket for $100. What surprised me was that my client didn't leave. I checked the back seat and he was still there. However, after a while, he grew impatient. Suddenly, he got out of the car, ran into the street, and got hit by another vehicle. Anyways, I noticed I was low on fuel, so it's a good time to talk about that. I drove to the gas station, pulled up, and paid for some premium gas. I could actually hold the pump and connect it to the car, watching the number go up. Another job I tried was working as a valet. Customers arrived at the hotel, and I carefully drove their vehicles to the garage, locking the car on the way out. Simple stuff. The one that actually meant something else was when I became a bus driver. I went from being the one waiting at a bus stop to now sitting in the driver's seat. Here, I was able to control the doors and even select the route I wanted. Driving it wasn't easy though. It was heavy and slow, but it was so cool watching the passengers get on the vehicle. They could also press the alarm button to signal when they wanted to get off. The sound was a bit annoying though. Another day while walking through the city, I saw a man busking on the street. For a moment, I stopped, remembering when I was in his place, playing music just to survive. I knew that feeling. If I wanted bigger opportunities, I needed to look the part. Thanks to all the contacts I had built and the jobs I had completed, I managed to land a helicopter gig. My task was to pick up VIP clients. Flying through the skies in first person was unbelievable. But the next job was even better. I became a private jet pilot. Before anything else, I had to complete a full pre-flight checklist. I inspected the engines, checked the brakes, then tested the left and right ailerons. Once everything was ready, I waited for the VIP and his bodyguards to arrive. 2 cars pulled up near the aircraft and then they got in. With everyone seated, I made my way to the runway, waited for clearance, and then took off. We were airborne. Flying towards sandy shores was breathtaking. It felt surreal. I had come a long way from sleeping under a bridge. Soon, it was time to land. I aligned with the runway, lowered altitude, and touched down. The VIP exited the plane. After that, I had to fly the plane back to Los Santos, returning to its home airport. After all the high-paying contracts I had taken, I managed to reach a total of $300,000. It wasn't enough to buy my dream house in one payment, but I could do something else. I went to the bank and applied for a mortgage. With this, I was able to buy it. I purchased the property and stepped inside. For the first time since this journey began, I had my own bed. I wasn't renting a room. I wasn't sleeping under a bridge. This was my home. There was one last thing I needed.